Good morning. We're continuing our readings in St. John's Gospel on day 354 of our 365-day trek through the Bible. And today we are looking at the sign that I have counted as the fifth in St. John's Gospel. This is Jesus healing a man born blind, and you'll find it in John chapter 9, verses 1 to 23. Here is my translation of that text. As Jesus walked along, he noticed a man who had been blind from his birth. His disciples asked him who had sinned. Was it the man's fault he was blind from birth, or was it the fault of his parents? Jesus answered, "It wasn't because this man sinned or his parents. He's blind so that in him people might see God at work. It's up to us, while it is day, to do the deeds of the one who sent me. Night is coming. Nobody can work at night. While I am in the world, I am the world's light." And while he was talking, he spat on the ground and made mud to put on the man's eyes. He said to him, "Go and wash in Siloam pool." Siloam means sent. He went and washed and came back, able to see. His neighbours and those who saw him before as a beggar said, "Isn't this the man who used to sit here begging?" Some said, "Yes, it's him." Others said, "No, it just looks like him." He said, "Yes, it's me." They said to him, "How come you can see now?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, then he smeared my eyes with it and told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and now I can see." "Where is he?" they asked him. "I don't know," he replied. They brought the man who had recently been blind to the Pharisees. As it happened, it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and gave him his sight. The Pharisees persisted in asking him how he could now see, and he repeated, "He smeared mud on my eyes, and then I washed, now I can see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man can't possibly be from God because he breaks the Sabbath." Others, however, said, "How could a sinner do signs like this?" They were unable to agree, so they turned to the blind man again. "He gave you your sight. What do you say about him?" He answered, "He's a prophet." The Jews were unable to believe that a man born blind could now see, so they summoned the parents of the man who could now see and asked them to identify their son and to testify that he had been born blind. "How come he can see now?" they asked. His parents replied, "We know our own son and that he was born blind, but we can't say how he is now able to see or who gave him that ability. Ask him, he's old enough to speak for himself." And so this argument continues in much the same vein in the remaining verses of the chapter. The faction of the Pharisees, who are determined to prove Jesus is a sinner, press their argument again and again that it was not Jesus, but the God of Moses who had opened the blind man's eyes. They conclude that the former blind man must have been born sinful, and that was why he was blind, and they expelled him from the worshipping community. Now, when Jesus hears that the man has been excommunicated, Jesus goes to some trouble to find him and talk to him. He asks the man whether he believes in the Son of Man. Well, this formerly blind man doesn't know Jesus is referring to himself, so when Jesus identifies himself as the Son of Man, the former blind man is happy to believe in him and pay him his respects for what he has done. He believes in Jesus, and Jesus says, "I came into this world to judge it, so that those who don't see can see, and those who think they see will realize how blind they are." Now, some of the Pharisees overheard what Jesus said, and their parting shot to him on this occasion was, "Blind are we?" Jesus told them, "If you are actually blind, you might be forgivable. But since you insist you can see, guilty you remain. So here we have a basically humane and charitable act that brought sight to a man who had been blind all his life. Here becomes a sign that tradition and written rules are not enough to save people. This blind man had never lived in a darkness as profound as the darkness that surrounded that faction amongst the Pharisees, for whom the tiniest infringement of the law had to be condemned. Here they were persecuting a clearly innocent man who had received a blessing he had not requested. He had done nothing to deserve receiving his sight. It was a pure gift. Once again, his affirmation of faith is not a condition of his healing, but a consequence of it. Here, in what I have called the fifth sign, Jesus, the light, gives the ability to see his light to us who were formerly unable to see. Once the light is in us, we too can be lights for others. All this comes to us through St. John in the context of a growing conflict between Jesus, with his light, healing and love, and the strict Pharisees, who can do nothing but criticize, since they are unable to see the light, the power and the love being poured out before them. Now, how that light, power and love are to form a community, John explains further tomorrow when he presents Jesus to us as the Good Shepherd. And I'll be glad to see you tomorrow.